Certainly is a very busy day in Washington, but obviously some overseas news as well as we get the president's surprise visit to Afghanistan. We're going to bring Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who's joining us now. He's of South Carolina. Of course, he's also a member of the Homeland Security Committee. So, Senator, certainly a busy day, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely is busy. You know, I don't know if gorillas like being compared to members of Congress.
That's a good point. Well, I guess we'll have to ask the gorillas. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the president's trip. You've been to Afghanistan nearly a dozen times.
Right.
What do you make of the timing of the trip?
Well, I'm glad he's going because this is a crucial period in December. In about 7 or 8 days, we're going to have a reevaluation of our strategy by General Petraeus, and it's good that the president is saying hello to the troops, thanking them for their service, meeting with President Karzai, listening to General Petraeus and our commanders on the ground. So I'm very glad that he's gone. I think the 30,000 troops are really beginning to show some signs of progress on the security front. There's much more to do.
We have so much on the table, though, back at home with Congress and what Congress is dealing with. And on a day like today with the jobs report, it seems like there's a lot of competing news items for center stage. Is it at all distracting or distracting from what Congress hopes to achieve with the compromise with these Bush-era tax cuts?
I don't think so. Maybe by the end of the day, some young man or woman will get killed in Afghanistan. Never lose sight of that we've got a lot of problems back here at home, but we're at war. And our young men and women who are going to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas overseas, I'm glad the Commander-in-Chief chose to go. And let's don't forget about the outcome in Afghanistan. The surge is beginning to work. I'm glad the president has stopped talking about leaving in 2011 and started talking about transitioning in 2014, where all NATO forces will work with the Afghans to transition to Afghan control by 2014. So let's don't lose sight of Afghanistan because it's a place where people are dying.
You know, that's a good point. And we're going to leave the troops up on the screen as we continue to talk about a few of these issues because it's important to take them all in context.
Absolutely.
As you remind us of this. So as far as a bipartisan agreement, though, for the Bush-era tax cuts in the Senate, where are we today?
It's just a matter of time. It's unsustainable for the Democrats to be able to not allow all tax cuts to be extended. The unemployment numbers today were devastating. If you raise taxes on one person, no matter how much money they make, that's ill-advised when it comes to job creation. So I think the wind has been taken out of the sails of those who want to allow certain Americans to have their taxes increased. So I predict sometimes next week that we'll have a vote that extends all Bush-era tax cuts to make sure we don't weaken the economy further.
There's been a lot of reports about the White House putting forward a compromise that would include 13 additional months of unemployment benefits, as well as extending some more tax breaks that we've seen pop up during this recession. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think that there will be a bipartisan agreement to extend unemployment insurance because the unemployment rate went up. From a Republican point of view, I'd like to pay for this extension, but it's pretty hard to argue that Americans don't need help when it comes to unemployment insurance if the unemployment rates went up. So that will get extended too. And there are some tax breaks that are non-traditional in the sense of having income assistance, EIT assistance, giving money to people who don't pay taxes, but on a lower economic end. I would support some of those being extended as long as we do it in a reasonable fashion, and that's probably the making of a deal. Extend unemployment benefits, extend all the Bush tax cuts at every level, and help people with scholarship money, EITC tax credits to help them with their weak income that they have at home.
All right, so it's comforting to hear that compromise in the air potentially next week. So just
I hope so.
A final question here, if we could. One of the other big agenda items, especially with the president being in Afghanistan, has been the START treaty.
Right,
and that's been something that the president says we have to take up now during the lame duck session. Is that second on your priority list as well?
I think it is a big priority, but Harry Reid can't do what he's talking about. You can't bring up the DREAM Act, don't ask, don't tell, and have a political checklist vote. We just don't have enough time. If you're serious about public policy, then we can extend the tax cuts, we can help the unemployed, we can help low-income Americans, and we can pass a START treaty that's good for America, that allows us to deploy missile defense apart from START and allows us to modernize our nuclear deterrent force. That is possible only if we get serious quick. And John Kyle's right. If you want a meaningful debate on the START treaty, you need to start next week.
All right, so we'll pencil you in next week for the compromise on tax cuts and talk to you then. Senator Graham, always nice to see you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Well,